Rule 0, people, of course you're gonna use what you prefer in a game. A book can't make you run something you don't want to. Only a game master can do that. And a good game master will use Rule 0 wisely and sparingly. Story trumps the rules. Hail Adventures, new angle. Okay, so it's been a very interesting week for me. You know, those of the Christian faith are usually those that follow different monotheistic religions. You have a God, and what your God says is infallible, and what your God says goes, and that's the bottom line because God said so. Well, rule number 0 is almost the same thing, you know, where God is the game master. The game master has the final say in the rules. Now, usually I'm a huge advocate for rule number 1, always have fun. But, however, I believe that rule 0 is just as important because, you know, the game master has the final say. However, even though the game master has the final say, whatever is fun for everybody should take precedence, because if the game master is a hard ass when it comes to the rules and he is enforcing rule 0 in that way, rule 0 to him is the rules of the book are the rules of the book and we're not deviating from that ever again, and it's my interpretation of the rules. That's his rule 0. Alright, but if that tarnishes everybody else's fun, there you have a big problem. Because see, the reason we're playing tabletop role-playing games is to have fun. Ideally, there are some people that are masochistic and they have various reasons why to play. They want to make the strongest characters, or they want to have this vision of having a lot of riches, and they even backstab their other fellow players' characters to do so. But at the end of the day, this is just completely my own opinion. If you're not playing tabletop role-playing games to have fun, you're doing it completely and utterly wrong. Now, hope the audio picks up well, because now the camera is actually a lot closer to me. Now, a couple of experiences I've had with Rule 0 in the past, when I've enforced certain rules. I remember in a game I was running, it was during Holy Friday, and I said to my players, oh, we're going to have a Holy Friday game, so be prepared for that. There was a player that's a devout Catholic, and he said, you're not going to have us kill Jesus, are you? And I'm like, no, nothing so crass. However, what I had them do was go to an alternate reality of Earth where magic is real, and Noah's Ark is basically the Mecca of Christianity. And that's where magic comes from. And Judas Iscariot actually resurrected as a lich. As a half-fiend lich. So they had to fight him. One of the players I remember was Monk. And during the fight, you know, Judas was fighting smart. He was flying and just shooting spells at them. The monk asked me, what can I do? I am completely and utterly powerless. There's nothing I can do in this fight. And I said, well, that's not true. You have a lot of ranks in climb. You can climb up. You have a lot of ranks in climb and in acrobatics, plus you're a monk. So you can climb up a building and jump on Judas, and then I'll let you grapple him so he falls down. Like if you wrap his wings while you're grappling him. And he said, that's not in the rules. And that to me was weird, because I was giving him a way. I was giving him something to do to be able to do something in the fight. Something that I thought was going to be really cool. Having him jump on Judas Iscariot and just make Judas plummet into the ground, taking falling damage as well. And I even told him, like, you're gonna take less falling damage than Judas because Judas is gonna cushion your fall. Because I think that's funny. And again, he said no because that's not in the rules. When I'm playing a game, I like it that the rules are completely stated. That if that's something I can do, that is stated from earlier on. And I told him, well, you were complaining that you couldn't do something, and I gave you an out. I gave you something to do. Them's the breaks. There we have a rules lawyer. There's something else I wanted to discuss today, because rules lawyers can be used for good and evil. Mostly I find them evil, but it's just the type of game master I am, because I'm the one that will enforce Rule 0. My rules are my rules, and that's it. If you're not having fun, then we'll talk. But if you're just being a rules lawyer and you're not having fun because the rules are not what you're used to, find a different group at that point. Because, rules lawyers, just in case you don't know what that is, rules lawyers is somebody that is going to enforce the rules, and he is going to question everybody. He would even go as far as to spend a whole hour of the game session just discussing a rule to prove that he is right. That's what rule lawyers do, and they bog down games, and they sometimes even kill games, because then nobody else wants to play anymore. And that's a huge problem when it comes to rules lawyers. I don't like them. I also had an experience with a rules lawyers once. I invited some friends, and I told them, this is an experimental game. I'm using rules where I'm removing magic items from character progression in Pathfinder. So no +5 swords, no amulet of resistances, no belt of +5 strength, nothing like that. Because I do have a system for that, and it's a really good system. I play tested it countless times in different games and in different one-shots, and it works really well. The major problem it has is the same problem any game has. You have to really monitor your PCs to know what they're doing and what they can fight, because the CR system is broken. Simple as that. Challenge rating for monsters, it's just entirely broken. Now, I told them that it was going to be a heavily tailored game, to the point that set of rules, we didn't have magic at all. There's no magic in the whole game. No wizards, no clerics, nothing. There are, however, alchemists, there's alchemy, and there are potions you can buy through alchemy. So healing it's a lot more difficult, because you provoke attacks of opportunity when you drink a potion. So they knew this coming in, and I explained the rules, I explained a bit of the setting, and one of the players eventually told me that he didn't want to come back because he didn't like the rules, basically. That's what it was. He just... And it wasn't somebody I invited directly. Someone else said, oh, I invited a friend of mine. I said, okay, if I invite a friend of mine. And I said, no problem, but, let him know. Because my friend told me that his friend was a bit of a stickler when it came to rules. Like, he was very headstrong when it came to that. And I told him, well, tell him from the get-go what he's getting himself into. And after he made his character and, talked with all the players, then he just told me, I'm not making a character. I'm not playing, because he didn't like the rules. And I'm like, yeah, but you already knew it was a heavily tailored game. And he actually started discussing a couple of the rules with me, and I'm like, dude, 1, you're in my house. 2, it's my game. 3, I'm the game master. 4, I already told you it's a heavily tailored game. Don't argue rules with me, because it's an entirely different system, basically, that I'm designing. So yeah, you have your rules lawyers that are very stubborn. But at the end of the day, Rule 0, Game Master, what the Game Master says goes. But you can't... You also can't be that type of Game Master that you're gonna hold fun just because it's what you want. You can be the type of Game Master that says, okay, you have to keep track of the food you eat. To say an example, so some Game Masters are sticklers when it comes to rations. How many rations do you have? You ate 3 today. You have 4 left. stuff like that. And I understand a lot of players don't like that. I don't like that either. I told my players, you just spend X amount of gold in the town and you have enough food until you get to the next town. That's how I do it. There's no role playing involved. You just have the food, because I'm not gonna role play you asking, oh, give me beef jerky and trail rations and Chex Mix. Who cares about that? But another thing about Rule 0 is that with Rule 0, you as the Game Master, you have the ability to veto anything the player wants to do. Be it core or not. That is something a lot of other rules lawyers do. Oh, it's core, and because it's core, I want to do this. It's a lot like in the Gamers, Darkness Rising, when Cass... It's Cass, right? Yeah. When Cass wants to play an elf monk in the all-human medieval Europe game, and the Game Master told him it doesn't fit the rules. Story trumps the rules, and it's my game, but eventually he just allowed him to play a monk anyways, though you could have just flavored it as he's a martial artist. Because I'm pretty sure we had those back in medieval times. People traveled. I don't know. So yeah, you have you as Game Master, you have the ability to veto whatever a player wants to do, because that is your job as Game Master, and that is something that we're not all good in. We're not all good doing, because sometimes you get into this mindset that you never want to say no to your players, and I've seen a lot of Game Masters that are like that. I never like to say no to my players. I always like to find a workaround. That's fine and dandy, but you also have to learn to say no. And just no. You have to learn to say no, because your game could be affected if you don't say no. And then people might get hurt. Like feelings might get hurt, or people might get, butt hurt and stuff like that. The reason I say people might get their feelings hurt is because I remember an experience, something I saw, where a player bought a new book and he wanted to try out a feat from the book. It was just he wanted one feat from the book. And the Game Master told him no, because it was a new book and he didn't see it fit into his campaign setting. But then he asked him if he could borrow the book, and the player said sure. The next week, the Game Master's best friend comes back with his character remade with a class from that book. Because, he was exerting his Rule 0. His word is law, but then you are abusing the system. Because why one player yes and another player no? That same Game Master during another game, he said, okay, we're using only 3.5 stuff. This was back in the time of Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition. And he said only 3.5 stuff. I don't want anybody bringing anything 3rd edition. And no splats, alright? Everything has to be legal D&D by Wizards of the Coast. 3.5. Anything 3.5, but it has to be 3.5, nothing 3.0. And I remember his brother brought something that was from 3rd edition. I think it was, he had a feat class combination that made him extremely deadly. And I checked it, and back then I was reading into a lot of books, and I said, wait a minute, this is 3rd edition stuff. Why can he use 3rd edition stuff but we can't? And a lot of players actually got angry. And he said, you know what, okay, from now on, everybody can use any book that's D&D 3rd edition. But nothing third party. And everybody said, okay. The problem was that we were already halfway into the campaign and nobody was making new characters. Except for me. Then I abused the system. And I'll talk about the Hentai Tentacle Man when I discuss Everrun Unlimited some other week. Maybe next time I do Geas Quest. Because that was a very special moment for me as a player. Very proud and shameful moment as well. But there you go, another Game Master, abusing his Rule 0 power. Usually how I use Rule 0 is I veto certain things. Like if we're playing a no magic game, no magic. I have a list of the classes you can pick. A list of the races you can pick, because a lot of my campaign settings don't have all the races, not even all the core races. So when you're a game master and you're gonna be enforcing Rule 0 a lot, it's a good idea to make a list. Because also Rule 0ing, it means, you know, your house rules, because we all game masters have house rules. Like me, one of my house rules is you don't have to keep track of your rations, because I don't really care. Your character 8, your character's not an idiot. You're not playing Sims where you have to make your character do everything. Some things are understandable. Same way you don't go into the woods to take a poo. It just, I mean, sure, I know some players do that and they go as far as, you know what, my character has diarrhea, I'm giving myself a penalty to my rolls. Damn it, Jay. I'm nauseated because my character has diarrhea, I'm self-imposing that on myself. Whatever. But some players will do that, but usually you don't roleplay pooping, and you don't roleplay taking a bath, or you might say, oh, my character went and take a bath or something like that, because nobody cares. Nobody cares that your character's taking a bath or not. So the point of the matter is, Rule 0 is very important. As a game master, you have to know how to use it, when to use it. Be fair when you use Rule 0, because your players get mad. If your players get mad, you end up without a table. You end up without players. You know, you have the power to veto or to reestablish things, because sometimes you might be like, okay, you know what, now you can use this thing that I said not to before. That's another problem, that you, as a game master, you have to be consistent. If you're not consistent, then you might end up falling into that loop. You don't allow something first and then you allow it. Another good example of Rule 0ing is, and it sucks when you have to do it, but a player came in with a class combination that kills everything 2 turns in. The synthesis, basically. The synthesis in Pathfinder doesn't kill everything in 2 hits, but it's a pretty damn good archetype. And I didn't veto the player that was using it during the game that I had a player having synthesis. I should have. But again, I fall into that category of, I don't want to hurt my players' feelings. I don't want to say no to my players. Back then, I believed in saying no. Nowadays, what's your build? What are you going to do with your character? What's your race class combination? Why? What's the damage you're planning to deal? Because I don't like munchkins. I used to be one, but I quickly outgrew that. Thank goodness. Much better. But, I don't like munchkins, and I check my players' builds to make sure everything is in the up and up. If I feel like something is too broken, nope, change that. Even if you already used it in the game, change that. What about story? Don't worry, you never had it. Whatever. Nobody cares, because we're here to have fun, and killing a monster in 1 hit is fun the first, heck, maybe even 3 times. But after that, it gets boring. And when you're my type of game master, you like to tell a hugely epic story. You don't want the big dragon that you've been building up die in 3 hits. Or because of a hugely disgusting race class combination gets completely and utterly destroyed. It's like, back in 3rd edition, there was a spell. It was a cold-based spell that dealt dexterity damage, and the people that I used to play with called it the Dragon Killer, because dragons in 3.5 had really low dexterity. So one casting of that spell usually would put them into dexterity 0, and at that point the rogue just go coup de grace until it's dead. And the poor bastard never stood a chance. That's the type of spell that you used it once, I let you use it once, vetoed. You can't use it anymore. Why? Because Rule 0. It is destructive to the game, and I don't want you just being a one-trick pony that does that spell. Oh, but what about making an encounter that goes against that? That is something I really, really dislike doing. I don't like making an anti-character NPC. Because your character, I did it once and I didn't feel, I was not proud of myself. During the synthesis game, I made another synthesist that had a lot of he only had banishment. That's all he had. That's all he was using during the fight. Using banishment to banish the other player's Eidolon. Because why? At that point, just kill off the characters like lightning bolt. You're dead. Whatever. Who cares? 20d6 points of damage. You're still alive. 20d6 more. Who cares? That's why it's important to use Rule 0 effectively and carefully, because you're gonna piss somebody off. And it's always gonna happen, but you have to let them know why you're doing it. That's why it's very important to have open communication with your players. If you don't have open communication with your players, you're gonna have a lot of misunderstandings, and misunderstandings lead to people leaving the table. And if you have people leaving your table, you're gonna get a reputation. Then nobody ever's gonna want to play under your table. Not under your table, but gonna play on your table. Or in your table. In your table. I'm not sure. It's late and I'm sleepy. So yeah, don't abuse Rule 0 by making an anti-character. Oh, your character deals a lot of damage this way. I'm gonna make something that's immune to that way of being dealt damage. Why? So the other players can shine in, have a moment of glory. Just avoid yourself all the hardships and learn to say no. Learn to use Rule 0. You use that spell, you can't use that spell anymore. You use that ability, you can't use that ability. That class from that third party publishing company, you used it, I didn't like it, vetoed, make a new character. If it has to go that far, it has to go that far. Maybe not make an entirely new character, maybe just, keep the concept of the character, but let's find a different class. That's another thing, when you're going to be Rule 0ing things, you need to sit down with your players. But Rule 0 is important because the Game Master is there for a reason. The Game Master is probably the person working the most, even though it's just a hobby and just to have fun, but probably the Game Master is the person working the hardest to make it happen because he wants the game to play well. No Game Master wants to run a bad game. At least I have never met in my life a Game Master that wants to run a bad game. If you've ever encountered such a Game Master, please let me know in the comment section below. But I have never, in my tenure as a player, my tenure as a Game Master and a couple of years as a player, I have never ever seen a Game Master that wants to run something just to run it badly. Another really bad example of using Rule 0 is another game I'm going to talk about that I played in. It was a really bad experience. Really soured me to Savage Worlds completely. We were playing an ad hoc version of Savage Worlds because it's very easy to ad hoc. But it had to do with Final Fantasy. And there was one session where only me and another player arrived. Nobody else arrived. Everybody was doing other things. And that session was really fun. Every other session was utter crap. But that session was really, really fun because the Game Master had to wing it. Originally, he didn't want to play anything, but I said, hey, it's my birthday and I really want to play. And he said, okay, no problem. And it was a really fun session. He did a lot of things that neither me or the other player expected. We loved it. And we said, can we please continue this storyline? The other players are probably going to enjoy it. And he said, no, it's not the story I'm writing. Because then you're using Rule 0 to enforce your story. But if your players want to do something else, that falls in your hand. Because at the end of the day, Rule 0 is what the Game Master says goes. But what the Game Master says should be what the players want. Because if you're not running something that your players are going to enjoy, why are you wasting your time and their time playing? Because I've heard of people that sadly have enough time to play once a month. And do you really want to play once a month a game you don't like? That's putting yourself through torture, and that is horrible. Regardless of, Rule Zero, people, use it. Use it wisely. Use it fairly, but use it. And players, respect Rule Zero. Unless you really are not having fun with the game. But that takes me to something else. If you're not having fun, but everybody else is having fun, you're the problem. As simple as that. If everybody else is having fun, but you're not, leave the game. The game is not compatible with you. It's just not. It's best if you just stand up, explain the situation. I can't play here. Everybody else is having fun except for me. I'm the problem. So I'll find another group, or I'll wait until this game is over so we can start a new game. Because why put yourself to that torture? Then you're not gonna be enjoying yourself, and if you don't enjoy yourself, it's not a hobby, it's a job at that point, and we're not getting paid to roll dice and pretend we're brave warriors with swords, or nerdy wizards with spellbooks, or slutty bards with big penises. Adventurers, Rule Zero. Treat it well. Treat it with respect. Game masters, respect your players when you veto things and use Rule Zero. Until next time, this is ARMR signing off. Remember, what trumps Rule Zero is rule number 1. Always have fun.